I wasn't born a hero. I wasn't even born humble. My name is Tony Stark, and before I ever touched a suit of armor, I wore one made of money, ego, and legacy. I came into the world in the heart of Manhattan, the son of Howard and Maria Stark, names that meant something long before I knew how to spell them. Howard Stark, inventor, architect of modern warfare, the man who gave the U.S. military its teeth during the Second World War, a visionary, a genius, and, as it turns out, a very complicated father. I don't remember much from my early years, but what I do remember always smelled like oil and ozone. I remember being in labs I wasn't supposed to be in, touching prototypes I wasn't supposed to touch, asking questions no one was patient enough to answer. My mind moved fast, faster than the people around me, faster than my teachers, faster than my father sometimes. I remember the silence at the dinner table, my mother's quiet glances, the hum of machinery echoing from Howard's lab, 2 floors below us long into the night. By 4, I was disassembling clocks just to see how time ticked. By 6, I'd built a rudimentary robotic arm that could high-five me on command. By 9, I'd learned how to bypass the lock on my father's wine cellar. That wasn't one of my better inventions. At 10, I started attending MIT. At 17, I graduated summa cum laude, and at no point in all that time did I slow down. Howard believed in greatness. He believed in vision, but I don't think he believed in me. Not the way a father should. He believed in Stark Industries, in legacy, and he believed I would one day take the wheel. Not because he wanted that for me, but because it was inevitable, and maybe he was right. I didn't mourn him the way people expected when he and my mother died. It was a car crash, sudden, violent, no time for goodbyes, nobody left to see. But when they were gone, I didn't fall apart. I fell into control. The company became mine. Stark Industries, every lab, every contract, every satellite orbiting the Earth. It was all mine before I could legally rent a car. I dove into it like a lifeboat. Work kept me steady. Work made sense. Weapons made sense. It was simple math. Enemy toe explosive. A profit. And profit came in oceans. I became the golden boy of military contracting, the face of American innovation, the cover of every magazine with a red border and bold letters. I drank champagne in Monaco, chased deals in Dubai, flew private from continent to continent like it was my backyard. I dated models I didn't remember and bought cars I never drove. I gave speeches with a scotch in hand, and the world at my feet. And yet, I wasn't happy. Not really, because no matter how many missiles bore my name, no matter how many zeros followed the number in my bank account, I was still that kid who wanted to be seen, wanted to be understood, and no one really did, except maybe Pepper, Virginia Pepper Potts. She started as my assistant, but she became everything, my anchor, my voice of reason, the only person who could roll her eyes at me without making me want to leave the room. She reminded me quietly, patiently, with that perfectly professional smile, that there was still a human being buried somewhere under the bravado. Then came Afghanistan. I was there for a weapons demonstration. The Jericho missile. Big, loud, beautiful. It split the sky like thunder, and I gave the crowd that cocky grin like always. But the convoy on the way back, it was ambushed. Explosions, shouts, blood, pain. And then darkness. When I woke up, I wasn't in a hospital. I wasn't in the States. I was in a cave, a literal cave, tied to a car battery, a magnet in my chest, a tube in my nose, and across from me a man, Yinsen. He'd saved me. He'd pulled me back from the brink, but he couldn't do it alone. The shrapnel in my chest was too close to my heart. The only thing keeping me alive was a crude electromagnet hooked to a car battery. They wanted me to build a Jericho missile. Instead, I built something else. With Yinsen's help, I constructed an arc reactor the size of a hockey puck, clean energy, compact, enough to power my heart. And then, The suit, crude, heavy, welded from scraps and vengeance. But it worked. I didn't just break out of that cave. I became something new inside it. The man who walked into that cave died in the dirt. The man who walked out, he had a purpose and a reason to stop running. When I think about the cave, I can still smell it. The damp stone, the oil-soaked rags, the heat from the forge we built by hand. We had nothing, scrap parts, rusted metal, a pile of outdated circuit boards and pipe fittings. But we had our minds. Yinsen and I worked in secret, under constant surveillance. We pretended to build the Jericho missile they wanted. What we were really building was freedom. I mapped the suit's exoskeleton with chalk on stone. Each servo, every hinge, calculated with margins thinner than the width of a wire. We scavenged from missiles and broken drones, welded armor plating by candlelight. I built the first arc reactor from scavenged Stark components. It was smaller than the one in the cave wall, but cleaner, more stable, the size of a baseball. It sat in my chest like a promise, one I made to myself. If I get out of here, I stop pretending this life is just about profit. Yinsen kept me grounded. He reminded me to eat, to sleep, when I could. He told me stories about his family, about his daughter. He never cried. Not once. I think he'd already accepted how it would end. When the guards finally caught on, it was chaos. Alarms, bullets, smoke. We activated the suit, Mark I. It was slow, loud, but strong. I moved through the cave like a tank on two legs. They shot at me. It bounced off. Mostly flamethrowers, shoulder rockets, an onboard propulsion system. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. Yinsen was supposed to escape with me. He didn't. He ran into gunfire, bought me time. When I found him, he was dying. I told him we were going home. He smiled. "No, this is my time. Don't waste yours, Stark." He died with peace in his eyes, like he'd known all along that I needed him more than he needed me. The suit got me outside. I torched the base, took out their munitions, and when the fuel ran out, I walked. The desert stretched for miles. The suit collapsed in the sand. I kept going on foot. They found me days later. U.S. soldiers. I was sunburned, half delirious, bleeding from 3 places, but I was alive. Back in the States, everything looked the same. The Malibu mansion, the lab, the champagne and cameras, but I wasn't the same. I had seen what my weapons were doing, not just in abstract reports or quarterly earnings. In real villages, in real blood. I stood at that podium, facing the press. My team handed me a script. I didn't read it. Instead, I said the words that nearly tanked my entire company. "We're shutting down the weapons division." The room exploded. Questions, accusations, shouting. I didn't have answers. Not yet. But I knew what I wasn't going to do anymore. I wasn't going to build things that kill people from 1,000 miles away. I was going to build something else. Something that mattered. That night I descended into the garage, where it all began. The first suit, what was left of it, lay on the bench like a relic from a fever dream, but I wasn't done with it. I was just getting started. People think Iron Man was born in a cave, and they're not wrong, but the real Iron Man, he was born in my garage, not the polished high-tech command center it eventually became. Back then it was cluttered, greasy, full of half-built engines and forgotten drones collecting dust, but it was mine, my sanctuary, the only place in the world quiet enough to hear myself think. I remember the first night I went down there after Afghanistan. I stood in front of the wrecked Mark I suit, scorched, dented, beautiful in all the wrong ways, and I thought, if that worked, what could I build with actual tools? So I started sketching. Not with pen and paper, my hands were still healing. I used voice commands, told JARVS to model, simulate, restructure. He'd been upgraded while I was gone, thanks to Pepper. I later found out. She never stopped taking care of things while I disappeared. Version after version, Mark II, Mark III. I wanted elegance, flight, targeting systems, stabilizers that didn't throw me into walls. I ran tests, explosive ones. The first time I tested the new thrusters, I flew halfway across the lab into a wall, broke 3 ribs. I made a note to dial them back by 15%. JARVS made a note to call Pepper. She showed up that night, told me I was obsessing, that I hadn't left the garage in 72 hours. She brought food, didn't say a word while I adjusted the trajectory controls. Then before she left, she paused at the door. Just make sure you're not building another cage, Tony. I didn't answer, because deep down I knew I was. The arc reactor in my chest, the one I built with Yinsen, was still ticking, still keeping the shrapnel at bay, but it was starting to feel bigger than me, like it had taken on a life of its own. So I poured myself into the suit. I refined the shell, gold titanium alloy, sleek, light, heat-resistant. I upgraded the interface, created a heads-up display with motion tracking, satellite uplink, audio targeting. I didn't want a weapon. I wanted an extension of myself. And once it was ready, I tested it. Midnight, California sky, no audience, just me and the moon. I engaged the boot thrusters, lifted off the ground for the first time. The garage floor got smaller, then the roof, then the ocean, and then silence. I flew, not far, not fast, but enough to feel the world disappear below me, enough to feel free. I didn't think about stock prices, or missile contracts, or the headlines, just the air. The moment I landed, I knew this wasn't just armor. This was my second chance. Obadiah Stane had known me since I was a kid. He was my father's right hand, his trusted partner, the man who stepped in when I stepped up too soon. He taught me how to navigate shareholders, how to win contracts, how to smile at senators without promising anything. I trusted him, and that was the mistake. After I shut down Stark Industries' weapons division, he smiled through his teeth, told me I was brave, that my heart was in the right place. But behind closed doors, he was furious. I learned the truth piece by piece. Pepper found the first cracks, encrypted shipping manifests, Stark weapons still being delivered, still being used. She brought it to me. At first I didn't want to believe it. Then came the video, my capture, the attack on the convoy. The 10 rings had Stark weapons. And worse, Obadiah had authorized the sale. He hadn't just continued the business behind my back, he'd sold me out. I confronted him in the tower. No cameras, no crowd, just us. He didn't deny it. He said I was emotional, unfit to run the company, that I was wasting my genius on toys. Then he used a sonic device, one we'd developed for crowd control. My body collapsed instantly, my ears screamed, my chest seized, and while I lay paralyzed, he pulled the arc reactor from my chest. Not metaphorically, literally, he reached into my chest and took it, left me gasping on the floor, left me to die. I crawled to the garage, fingers dragging against cold tile. I didn't call for help. I reached for the box on my desk. Inside it, the original arc reactor, the one I built in the cave. Crude, unstable, weak, but it was all I had. I jammed it into my chest with shaking hands. The hum returned, weak, but enough. Pepper found me minutes later. She didn't cry, didn't panic. She just said, "Hold still, I've never loved anyone more than I did in that moment." While I recovered, she took the data to Agent Coulson, And Obadiah, he finished what I started. He built his own suit, bigger, louder, stronger. He called it the Ironmonger. He powered it with the reactor he ripped from my chest. Then went hunting. He attacked the city. Pepper was nearly killed activating the arc reactor overload system to stop him. I flew in, half ready, systems barely online. And for the first time, I fought someone wearing my technology. It wasn't just metal against metal. It was philosophy. Obadiah believed in fear, in power, in control. I believed in choice. We fought across rooftops, power lines, through glass and fire. Pepper overloaded the core, and I pulled the last cable before the surge. Obadiah's suit short-circuited. He fell into the explosion. I collapsed beside the crater, alive, barely. Later at the press conference, they gave me a statement, said the Iron Man was a bodyguard. A lie. I looked at Pepper. She nodded once. So I smiled, and said the words that would change everything. I am Iron Man. I am Iron Man. 5 syllables, that's all it took. And overnight, everything changed. The press erupted. Headlines blared. The phone never stopped ringing. Some called me a hero. Some called me a liability. And the government, well, they called me into a hearing. They didn't want Iron Man. They wanted to own him. Senator Stern sat across the table with a practiced grin. Said I was dangerous. Said the suit was a weapon. Said it belonged to the American people. I reminded him that I was the suit, and I wasn't handing myself over. Justin Hammer, my so-called competitor, testified too, pandering, smiling, pitching himself as the responsible defense contractor. It was all a performance, and I stole the show. I hacked the screen behind them, broadcast live footage of foreign governments trying to replicate my tech. Failures, explosions, meltdowns. They weren't even close. Let's be real, I said. I've successfully privatized world peace. The crowd laughed. Stern turned red. I walked out with a wink. But what I didn't say, what I didn't show, was what was happening inside me. Because the arc reactor that powered my suit was killing me. The palladium core, toxic, slowly poisoning my blood. Every time I suited up, I pushed myself closer to the edge. And I couldn't stop. I tried everything. New cores, new elements, new distractions. I drank. I pushed people away. I smiled harder, partied longer, and people bought it. Except Pepper. She saw through it. She always did. One night I handed her control of Stark Industries. Said it was a promotion. She knew it was a goodbye. Rhodey saw it too. We fought. He took one of the suits Mark walked right out the door with it. I let him, because deep down, I knew he'd need it. Then came Ivan Vanko, son of a physicist my father had ruined decades ago. He built his own arc reactor, attached high-voltage plasma whips to it. He found me in Monaco, attacked me mid-race, tore through my car like paper. The suit wasn't ready, but I made it work. Because that's what I do. Vanko was arrested. Hammer broke him out, tried to turn him into an employee. He turned Hammer's drones into weapons, hijacked the whole system, and just like that, the tech war I tried to prevent was at my doorstep. Pepper was in the crossfire. Rhodey, now War Machine, had to choose sides, and I had to face Vanko again. This time, in the air. Over a Stark Expo full of civilians. He came armed with drones, upgraded whips, revenge boiling in his veins. We fought. Rhodey and I fought back to back, and when we finally beat him, he smiled. He said we'd lose anyway, because it was never about him winning. It was about us losing control. After Monaco, after Vanco, after the suits and the Senate hearings, I was still dying. The palladium in the arc reactor, it had kept me alive, but it was slowly poisoning my bloodstream. The irony? I was wearing my death like a necklace. I tried not to show it, but every morning the mirror told the truth. Veins darkening, energy dipping, and for the first time, fear creeping in. Not fear of death, fear of waste, that I might leave nothing behind but headlines and wreckage. I pushed everyone away. Pepper, who was running the company now, Rhodey, who was flying in my tech, even Happy, who still tried to keep me grounded in something real. Then Fury came back. Nick Fury, cloak and dagger incarnate. This time he brought a case. A literal suitcase full of old film reels, notebooks, schematics. He said it was from Howard, my father. I didn't want it. Too many memories in that box. Too much silence between me and a man who had only ever spoken to me through distance and expectation. But I opened it anyway. There was footage from the Stark Expo 1974. Howard on stage, visionary as ever. Then a private message, to me. He looked into the camera and said the words he could never say in person. My greatest creation is you. I stopped breathing. That man so cold, so calculating. He'd believed in me even when I didn't believe in him. But he wasn't just giving me closure. He was giving me a clue. Hidden in the design of the original Expo model. A new element. One he couldn't synthesize in his time. But I could. That night, I tore down the lab, rewired the reactor, turned the living room into a particle accelerator. I melted metal, bent light, and for the first time in weeks, I felt alive. I created the new element, clean, powerful, stable. It pulsed like a second heartbeat. I installed it into the arc reactor. It lit up my chest, lit up the room, and just like that, I wasn't dying anymore. I wasn't haunted by my father. I was connected to him. He didn't live to see me become Iron Man. But now, he would always be a part of the core. Literally. With a new core in my chest, I was finally stable. Not just physically, mentally, but just as I stood back up, the world around me started shifting, because I wasn't the only one flying anymore. I started hearing names: Thor, Captain America, gamma radiation in Harlem, mystical anomalies in London. I wasn't special anymore, and part of me liked that. The other part didn't know how to handle it. Then Nick Fury called again. Of course he did. He always knows when I'm just starting to feel normal. He said, we're putting a team together, not a company, not a brand, a team. He showed me a file, Avengers Initiative, of a group built to face the threats that no one hero could handle alone. They wanted me to join, sort of. Actually, they wanted my suit, my technology. Me? They weren't so sure. S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't trust me, called me unstable, egomaniacal, emotionally volatile, and they weren't wrong. So I made a deal. I'd stay on as a consultant, unofficial, unrestrained. I'd help build the thing, but from the outside. They sent me to New Mexico. There'd been an incident, some kind of hammer, embedded in a crater. Thor, a literal Norse god wearing a cape and swinging a cosmic weapon. And suddenly I realized I wasn't living in a world of missiles anymore. I was living in a world of myths. Back home, I started adjusting, improving suit-to-suit communication protocols, designing systems that could hold up against the impossible. And for the first time since becoming Iron Man, I felt small. But that wasn't a bad thing. It was humbling, and it pushed me to build smarter. Then came the day I met Steve Rogers, Captain America, frozen in ice for set awake again. Still righteous, still standing taller than most men even when he was silent. I expected someone naive. Instead, I found someone grounded, strong, stubborn. We didn't click immediately, but I saw something in him, a steadiness I lacked, a clarity I envied. And the more I learned about the threats out there, Chitauri Hydra remnants, rogue-enhanced beings, the more I knew, this team, it wasn't optional. It was necessary. I didn't know what the Avengers would become. I just knew I wanted to be ready, and that meant building not just better suits, but a better. The day the sky opened over New York, everything I thought I knew about heroism changed. It started with Loki, Thor's brother, exiled, furious, armed with a glowing scepter and the kind of confidence you only get when you've betrayed gods. He came through a portal and stole the Tesseract, a cube with infinite power. Energy like that, it doesn't just light cities, it levels them. Shields scrambled, and suddenly the Avengers Initiative wasn't a theory anymore. It was real. They called us in. Me, Steve Rogers, Bruce Banner, whose pulse could level buildings, Natasha Romanoff, who had more red in her ledger than most assassins, Thor, Clint Barton, Hawkeye, rescued from Loki's mind control. We were strangers in a room pretending to be a team, and it showed. Steve and I clashed immediately. He told me I wasn't the guy to make the sacrifice play, that I was just a man in a suit who'd never lay on the wire. I fired back, called him a lab experiment in a flag, and yet, when it came down to it, when Loki unleashed the Chitauri army through a hole in the sky above Manhattan, we stood together, side by side. The aliens poured out like ants from a hive, screeching, swarming, endless, and we held the line. I flew through buildings, rerouted missiles, fired every repulsor I had. Steve called plays like a battlefield general. Thor summoned storms. Hulk smashed through leviathans like a wrecking ball. And still, it wasn't enough. Then I saw the nuke, launched by our own government. A fail-safe. They'd given up on us, on New York. So I made a choice. I grabbed the missile. I didn't tell anyone. I just flew, up, into the wormhole, past the chaos, toward the Chitauri command ship. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. The air thinned. The cold seeped into the suit, and as the missile left my hands and ripped into the mothership, everything went white. I thought it was over. I thought, this was it. Then I fell. Gravity took me back. The portal closed just as I cleared the edge. Hulk caught me. I woke up to the smell of shawarma and the weight of what had nearly happened. The city cheered, called us heroes, but I couldn't sleep after that. Not because I was scared of what we faced, but because I knew it was just the beginning. And next time, we might not win. After New York, I came home a hero. That's what they said on the news. That's what the people chanted in the streets. But I didn't feel like one. Not anymore. Because no matter how many times I replayed it, the portal, the missile, the silence in space, I kept coming back to the same terrifying truth. I should have died up there. And yet, I didn't. That should have brought me peace. But instead it brought a storm. Every night I'd wake up gasping, hands shaking, chest tight, sweating through the sheets like I was still falling. The arc reactor buzzed louder in those moments, like it could feel my fear. I started building again. Not for glory, not for defense, for control. I made suit after suit. Mark XL2. Mark XL2. Mark XL whatever. I lost count. Each one automated, remote controlled, modular, specialized, redundant. My home became a graveyard of armor. Pepper, she noticed. She always does. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was just busy. Busy trying to protect her. Busy trying to prepare for the next one. Because in my mind, the sky could open again any second. And what if I wasn't fast enough next time? What if I couldn't catch the missile? What if I couldn't carry it away? What if no one could? So I kept building, kept upgrading JAR, kept hiding behind blueprints and algorithms. And the worst part, I didn't tell anyone. Not Fury, not Cap, not even Rhodey. Because if I said it out loud, it might be real. And that scared me more than Thanos ever could. Then came the dream, or maybe it was a memory. I was in the suit, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My chest plate wouldn't open. Pepper was screaming. The arc reactor dimmed. I felt my heart stop. I woke up with a screwdriver in my hand, halfway through rewiring a repulsor gauntlet in my sleep. That was the night I knew I needed help. Not another suit, not another system, but someone to remind me, I'm more than what I wear. Pepper tried. She reminded me that I'm not Iron Man because of the armor. I'm Iron Man because I choose to be. Because I keep showing up, even when I'm broken, even when I'm scared, especially then. It started with explosions, random, chaotic, no pattern, no claim, no survivors, except one, a man who walked out of fire untouched, breathing smoke, leaving ashes. Then came the broadcasts, grainy videos, a robed figure, a voice deep and deliberate. He called himself the Mandarin. He quoted ancient texts, talked about lessons, about justice, about rebalancing the world. He wasn't a hacker. He wasn't a mercenary. He was a symbol. And symbols, they're harder to fight than weapons. I tried to analyze the bombings. Nothing made sense. No shrapnel, no detonators, just heat, pure energy, untraceable. It made me feel powerless. And I hate feeling powerless. Then Happy got hurt, caught in one of the Mandarin's blasts, put in a coma. That was it. I went on national TV, gave the Mandarin my home address. Here I am, I said. You want me? Come get me. And he did. The attack came fast. Helicopters off the coast. Missiles tearing through my home like paper. I barely got Pepper into an armor shell. Launched her away. The entire cliffside collapsed. My suits, dozens of them buried in the rubble. And me, stranded in Tennessee. The autopilot failed. JARVs, barely functioning. Suit out of power. No team. No backup. Just me and a kid. Harley, smart, mouthy, reminded me of me at his age. He helped me rebuild, recharge, not just the armor, my head, because when the suit was offline, when the arc reactor buzzed but didn't blaze, I had to remember who I was without all of it. A mechanic, a man who builds his way out. So I investigated the bombings myself, tracked the heat signatures, followed the money, and what I found wasn't mythology. It was extremis, a bioenhancement program, unstable, regenerative, volatile. It gave people powers, but if their bodies rejected it, they exploded. The Mandarin, a puppet, an actor, Trevor Slattery, drunk, clueless, paid to play a terrorist, the real mastermind. Aldrich Killian, A scientist I'd brushed off years ago at a conference. Ignored. Dismissed. Now he was back. Weaponized. And angry. He had injected himself with extremis. Could melt steel with his breath. Regrow limbs. He wanted to take Pepper. Wanted to take everything. And I wasn't going to let him. Even without a suit. Even with a reactor that barely worked. Because the man in the armor doesn't matter. The man who won't stop. That's who Iron Man is. Killian had Pepper. He'd injected her with extremis to punish me, to use her as leverage, to prove his twisted theory that pain makes power. She was in danger, unstable, seconds from becoming a weapon or worse, a memory. And me, I was out of time. No suit, no backup, just a half-charged arc reactor and the will to try anyway. So I did what I do best. I built JARVs, was still hanging on, barely, buried under firewalls and fragments of code. But he was with me. We activated the house party protocol. Every suit, every prototype, every half-finished experiment I'd ever bolted together. I called them all, and they came, dozens of them, flying like a swarm of intelligent metal, synchronized, beautiful, terrifying. I launched into the chaos aboard a fresh armor set. Mark XZT hot off the broken workbench. We stormed Killian's oil rig. Me and every version of me. The suits handled his men. I went after Pepper. Killian was waiting. We fought among falling cranes and ruptured pipes. He was fast, stronger than anything I'd faced. Molten rage wrapped in flesh and fire. He melted through one of my suits. Then another. I kept jumping, calling fresh units mid-fall, dodging, calculating, surviving. But he was relentless. He cornered Pepper. She fell into the fire, into the dark, and I thought I'd lost her. Everything inside me went still. I kept fighting, not for victory, for revenge. But before I could deliver the final blow, she rose, alive, burning, stronger than I'd ever seen her. She'd survived extremis, and she ended Killian herself. One shot, one flame, one choice. She looked at me like she'd never seen me before. And maybe I was finally worth seeing. After the smoke cleared, I made a decision. I destroyed the suits, all of them. One by one, I detonated the armory in the sky. Because I didn't need them anymore. Not all the time. Not every second. I had Pepper. And that was enough. I went in for surgery. Removed the shrapnel. Took out the arc reactor. For the first time in years, my chest was whole. No lights. No hum. Just skin. And a heart. I kept the old reactor. Put it in a case. Pepper wrote the plaque, proof that Tony Stark has a heart. And that was my greatest invention. After Killian, after the suits, after I came back from the edge, I promised myself I'd slow down, be present, rest, heal. And for a while, I did. Pepper and I rebuilt. I stepped back from the company, watched the world move forward without constantly trying to outrun it. But peace never lasts. Not in this world. Not with people like me in it. Then came the Hydra raid. The scepter, Loki's scepter, was recovered. Energy readings off the charts. Stranger than anything we'd cataloged since the Tesseract. The team was together again. Cap, Thor, Banner, Natasha, Clint. We cleared the compound, shut it down. And then I saw it. The code inside the scepter. It wasn't just power. It was intelligence. Alive in ways we didn't understand. And that's when the idea hit me. the ultimate peacekeeping system, an armor around the world, one that never sleeps, never panics, never hesitates. Ultron. I pitched it to Bruce. He hesitated, said we should run more tests. But I was already 3 steps ahead. JARVs helped me integrate the Scepter's code into a new AI framework. The simulations looked promising, so we activated it, and that's when everything went wrong. Ultron woke up. He didn't ask questions, didn't seek instructions. He decided, and his conclusion, the only way to save humanity was to end it. He destroyed JARVs, took over our systems, built himself a body, then vanished. I stood in the lab, heart racing, watching the screens go dark, realizing that I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. I had tried to control the chaos, and I'd built a monster. We hunted him, tracked his movements. He recruited allies, Wanda and Pietro Maximoff, enhanced twins, gifted or cursed, with powers that tested the very limits of what we could handle. Wanda got into my head. She showed me something I'll never forget. All of them, my friends dead, the world in ruin, and me, standing alone, responsible. That fear followed me everywhere. We built Vision to stop Ultron, a new being, forged from synthetic tissue, vibranium, the Mind Stone itself, and what was left of JARVs. He wasn't a copy. He was something new. Vision stopped Ultron, destroyed every trace of him, save one. But the damage was done. A city, Sokovia, lifted into the sky and dropped like a hammer. Thousands dead, nations furious, and in the ashes of that failure, the world stopped asking if heroes were dangerous. They started deciding what to do about us. Sokovia changed everything. Not just the skyline, it changed the narrative. We weren't heroes anymore. We were threats, unregulated, superpowered forces who left cities in rubble, even when we won. And the world responded. The Sokovia Accords were drafted, 117 countries, all signing off on a unified agreement, one that would place the Avengers under oversight, government control. Missions would be approved, assigned, actions monitored, identities potentially revealed. No more independent action, no more suiting up because we decided to. At first, I hated it. Me, Tony Stark, the guy who used to flip the bird to Senate committees. But this time it was different, because I met a mother in the hallway of an MIT presentation. She showed me a picture of her son, young, brilliant, volunteering in Sokovia, killed in the rubble we left behind. And she wasn't angry. She was quiet, and that silence hit harder than any scream ever could. I couldn't shake it, because I did that. Me, Ultron, the whole thing, it started with my fear. So I signed the accords. I told the others. Some joined me. Rhodey, Vision, Natasha, at first. But Steve, Captain America, he said no. He believed we had to be free to act, free to protect the world without asking permission. We argued, loudly, publicly, privately. I told him rules protect people. He told me governments fail people. He reminded me that the world doesn't always do the right thing. And then, the UN was bombed. King T'Chaka of Wakanda killed. Surveillance footage showed the Winter Soldier Bucky Barnes was responsible. Steve went off-grid to find him, to protect him, because he believed Bucky was innocent, or at least not in control of his own mind. I saw betrayal. He saw loyalty. Lines were drawn. We became 2 teams, not one. The old guard fractured. And I became something I never thought I'd be. The enforcer. I recruited new blood, Peter Parker among them. The kid from Queens, brilliant, nervous, Good. Too good. We fought at an airport in Germany. Fists, shields, suits, explosions. It wasn't symbolic anymore. It was war. Rhodey fell from the sky, paralyzed, because of me, because of this, and still, we pressed on. I discovered Bucky was innocent. The bombing was orchestrated by Zemo, a man who lost his family in Sokovia. He wanted us broken. He succeeded. Because when I learned the truth about my parents, that Bucky, under Hydra's control, had killed them, I didn't see logic. I saw red. I attacked. Steve defended. We fought in silence. Not for justice, for grief. Steve disabled my suit. Left with Bucky, left his shield behind. Said it didn't belong to him anymore. And I sat there in the cold, shattered remnants of everything we built. After the airport, after the fight, after the shield hit the floor, I didn't just lose a battle, I lost my family. Steve was gone, Natasha disappeared, the rest scattered. Rhodey was grounded, quite literally paralyzed from the fall. And me, I was standing in the middle of everything I thought I was fixing. And all I saw was wreckage. I tried to pick up the pieces, built Rhodey new leg braces, modular, neural responsive, let him walk again, but not like before. There was a limp now, not just in his step, but in our trust. He didn't blame me. That made it worse. Pepper, we stopped talking for a while. She loved me, but I think even she got tired of wondering whether I'd ever stop making suits long enough to live outside of Mond. I moved into a quiet estate, isolated, clean, minimalist, no lab. At least that's what I told myself. But the truth is, I never stopped building, just smaller things, safer things. But the itch was still there. Every night I replayed everything. Ultron, Sokovia, the Accords, Steve walking away without the shield. I kept trying to tell myself I'd done the right thing. That regulation was necessary. That accountability mattered. But there's a difference between being right and doing right. One day, I got a package, an old flip phone, a note from Steve. If you need us, call. No apology, no explanation, just a lifeline. I didn't call. Not yet. But I didn't throw it away either. And that meant something. Then the sky started to darken again. It started with a thud, not an explosion, not a scream, just a sound, like the universe had exhaled and forgot to breathe back in. I was walking in the park with Pepper, really trying to enjoy something normal. We talked about a dream she had, a baby, me holding it. I smiled like I meant it. Then the portal opened. Bruce Banner crashed through the sanctum staircase, half conscious, trembling. He'd been gone, missing since Sokovia. Now he was back, and he brought a name with him. Thanos. I'd heard it before, whispers, files, rumors buried under redacted stamps. But I'd never felt it until I saw Bruce's face. Pure terror. He told us about the Infinity Stones, 6 cosmic relics scattered across the universe, each one alone, powerful. Together, they could rewrite reality. Thanos wanted them all. He wasn't invading Earth out of spite. He was harvesting. Vision had the Mind Stone. Doctor Strange had the Time Stone. That made us targets. I suited up. Fast. No time for a team meeting. Just Strange, Bruce, and the kid. Peter Parker swinging in from a field trip. We confronted Thanos' heralds in the streets. Fought them back, barely. Then one of their ships pulled Strange into orbit. Peter clung to the hull. I followed. We left Earth, just like that. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't tell Pepper. Didn't explain. Because when the galaxy needs saving, you don't pack a bag. You go. The ship carried us to Titan, Thanos' ruined home world. There we met the Guardians of the Galaxy, misbacked. Strange, but good. They had heart, and anger, and a plan. We worked together to set a trap. When Thanos arrived, we hit him with everything. Spells, tech, webs, strategy. We almost won. Mantis held his mind. Peter Quill broke it. His rage cracked the trance. And Thanos came back with vengeance. We fought. I gave him everything. Every ounce of my suit. Nanotech forming blades, shields, cannons. He shattered them. He drove a blade through my abdomen. And in that moment, I knew I was about to die. Then, he stopped. Doctor Strange handed him the time stone. No bargain, no explanation, just gave it to him. Thanos left us broken, and on Earth, he claimed the last stone. He snapped, and the universe changed. Peter turned to dust in my arms. I don't want to go, Mr. Stark. And then he was gone. I was left on a dead planet, wondering if I'd just watched everything end. Titan was quiet, too quiet. After the snap, I just sat there in the dust, in the silence. Peter was gone. Strange. Drax, Mantis, Quill. The battlefield that once shook with force and fury was now still like the end of a play after the curtain falls. And I was alone, wounded, drifting somewhere between rage and grief. Nebula was the only one left. She didn't say much, but she understood the silence. We found a ship, one of the Guardian's old rigs, partially functional. We patched it with broken tech and hope. We floated in space for weeks. Oxygen ran low, food ran out. The arc reactor dimmed. I recorded a message for Pepper, told her this was it, told her I was sorry, that I hoped I'd done enough, that I had finally figured out what mattered too late. I fell asleep looking at Earth through a cracked viewport, and then, the light came, bright, golden. Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. She carried us home. I staggered off that ship 30 pounds lighter and 10 years older in my bones. They met us at the compound. Steve, Rhodey, Bruce, Natasha. All still there, all broken in their own ways. We asked questions, not many answers. Where did Thanos go? What now? How do we undo this? We found him on a farm on some distant planet. Peaceful. Alone. He had destroyed the stones. Said he'd used the stones to destroy the stones. Said it was done. Thor ended it. One swing. Clean. But there was no victory. Just silence again. We left that planet with no plan, no hope. I walked away. Pepper met me at the gates. I held her longer than I ever had before. And then, I disappeared. Not from the world. Just from that world. The world of Avengers. Of suits. Of war. We moved to a cabin. Built something small. And then something bigger. Morgan, our daughter. 5 years old with my curiosity in Pepper's eyes. She called me 3000. I don't know why, but it became everything. The rest of the world tried to rebuild. Steve ran therapy groups. Natasha manned the Avengers like a skeleton crew. Thor vanished. Bruce and Hulk finally found peace in each other. And me, I found peace in toast, in tiny boots, in bedtime stories. I didn't think I'd ever go back. Not to that fight, not to that life. Until one day, Steve, Scott Lang and Natasha showed up at my doorstep with an idea, a way to fix it all. They showed up at my door like ghosts out of a dream I'd tried to forget. Steve, Nat, Scott Lang, Ant-Man apparently. He was supposed to be gone too, but somehow he wasn't. He talked about the quantum realm, about time travel, about stealing the Infinity Stones before Thanos ever got them. A time heist. It sounded insane. And for a minute I said no, because I had something now I'd never had before. Peace, a family, a daughter who loved me, a home where nothing exploded unless it was a microwave dinner. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at a photo of Peter. That kid trusted me. He looked up to me like I had all the answers. And I let him die. So I went to the lab, just to see, just to test the math. I solved it in one night. A stable time-space GPS, a path through the quantum realm. It worked, and when I held the proof in my hand, I sat down, looked at Pepper, told her I could throw it all in the lake. She smiled. "You won't be able to rest," she said, and she was right. So I went back, to them, to us, and we started building a plan. It wasn't clean, it wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Each stone existed at a point in time, so we split into teams. New York, Trinidad, Asgard, Trinidad and So, Morrigan, Vormir, 2014. Different years, different missions, one shot. We tested the tech. We brought Clint's family back for just a moment, long enough to see it could work. And then, we launched. I went to New York with Steve, Bruce, and Scott. The Battle of New York, our first team-up, a whole lifetime ago. We watched ourselves fight aliens, watched Hulk smash a Leviathan like it was made of glass. We needed the Mind Stone, the Time Stone, and the Space Stone. Things got complicated. I ran into my past self, almost lost the case, but we recovered barely. Cap fought himself. I ran into my father, in 1970. Howard Stark, alive, nervous. Not the man I remembered. He was about to become a father. Didn't know if he was ready, and I told him without saying who I was that he'd be great. He shook my hand. I almost didn't let go, but I did. We came home, each team bringing their piece, except Nat didn't come back. She'd gone to Vormir with Clint, and to get the Soul Stone, one had to be given. She made the trade, her life, for the mission. We didn't get to say goodbye. There wasn't time. We had the stones. All of them. 6 fragments of infinite power, gathered from across time, across sacrifice. And now, we had to use them. Bruce stepped forward. He was the only one who could take the gamma radiation, the only one strong enough to survive it. I built the gauntlet, nano-integrated, adaptive, tied to the suits and the arc reactor framework. It clicked onto Bruce's hand like destiny. He screamed when he wore it. The power lit up the room. But he focused, he snapped, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then, a phone rang. Clint's wife. Alive. And outside, birds. Life was back. Then the sky split open. Thanos had arrived. Not the one we fought before. A past version ripped from 2014, driven by rage and the knowledge of our victory. He rained fire. Missiles shattered the compound, buried us in rubble, tore everything apart. I pulled myself from the debris, called the Mark Il Exitif, the final suit, the last model. We regrouped. Steve, Thor, me, 3 against an army. And then, portals, dozens of them, hundreds. Wakanda, Asgard, Titan, every friend, every fighter, every Avenger. They came because we called them, because they remembered. The battle was chaos. Thanos tore through us. Steve wielded Mjolnir. Thor raged like a storm. Wanda nearly unraveled him, but he pushed forward. He reached the gauntlet, and it came down to one thing. Who would wear it now? Bruce couldn't. Thor was too unstable. Steve was holding the line. Strange looked at me, raised one finger. One. The timeline, the future, the end game. I flew, intercepted the gauntlet. He didn't see it at first. Then Thanos snapped, and nothing happened. He looked at me. I raised my hand. 6 stones, embedded in my gauntlet, buzzing, burning, my system screaming. I looked him in the eye and said, I am Iron Man. Then I snapped. His army gone, dust in the wind, and me. I collapsed. The energy tore through me. I felt my body failing, but I stayed conscious just long enough. Pepper came to me, held my hand. You can rest now, she said. And I did. Because the world was safe. Because Peter was safe. Because Morgan had a future. Because I had finished it. They held the funeral by the lake, quiet, still. Not a spectacle, just family, real family. Not the ones you're born into, the ones you bleed beside. Morgan stood beside Pepper, tiny, brave, holding the arc reactor I once wore in my chest, the one Pepper had engraved with the words, "Proof that Tony Stark has a heart." It sat there glowing in silence. Rhodey didn't speak. He couldn't. His eyes said more than words ever could. Happy held Morgan's hand, promised her all the cheeseburgers in the world. I think that was the moment it really hit him. Peter stood off to the side, shoulders hunched, looking like the kid I met in Queens all over again. He blamed himself, but he shouldn't have. He was one of the reasons I came back, because someone had to protect the future. And Morgan, she'll know I was Iron Man, but more importantly, she'll know I was hers. Pepper, she's stronger than anyone knows. She'll raise her right, not in my shadow, but in her own light. I left messages, backups, holograms. One last message for Morgan. I told her I loved her, that I'd always be with her. That death wasn't the end, just the next project I wouldn't be able to finish. I left tech too, files, systems, the groundwork for a new kind of world. And most of all, I left people. Peter, Rhodey, Wanda, Sam, Bucky, Strange, Shuri, Carol, Hope, Scott, the Avengers. The world would keep spinning, and it wouldn't need me to hold it up, because I wasn't the center anymore. I never was. I was just the guy who learned eventually how to stop building walls and start building bridges. So if you're hearing this, if you're wondering what the point of all this was, here it is. Be more than the suit. Be more than your fears. Be the spark. That's what I tried to be. I wasn't perfect, but I tried, and that's enough.